What's up, Covalence friends? I'm back in action and I am ready to be exploring some new content for you guys. So, what I wanted to look into today is doing another interview question that we've had pop up on a few of our alumni interviews. So, some of our students have encountered issues where they've had to deal with lifting state up. Some have had kind of everything scaffolded out and it was kind of a quick little passing down of props. Others have had to deal with creating everything pretty much from scratch. So it might seem a little daunting if you haven't used that pattern before, but it's a lot easier than you think. So what exactly is lifting state up? Well, when you want to pass state around with React, usually you have your state at your component and you send it down to a child component with props. Easy peasy, right? Well, what if you wanted to do it inverted? What if you had state in a component and you needed to get it up to your parent component? Or what if you had an element that you were returning and there was a sibling element that you had to get that data to? Well, how can you get that to the sibling component when neither of them nest each other? And that's where the concept of lifting state comes in. So we can create our state at the next highest ancestor, which is usually just the parent component, have it be established there, and we can have our children components receive the state setter, or a function that alters state, as a prop. And that will let you adjust state from children components at a higher level that can transit to other children components. So let's go ahead and see exactly what that entails. I have here just a quick little Create React app that I spooled up. Got a little app component. I've also got Bootstrap imported for just some kind of quick and dirty layout. I have my app here with a button panel component, and the button panel, it's not even a button right now, it's just an H1, but you get the gist. It's going to be styled like a button. It's going to be a button eventually, but the important nature of the relationship is I have a button here nested within app. And so if I had kind of a typical setup where I had some state being established by this button panel component, you know, it's a button. Let's go ahead and do a classic example, a counter. So we'll import uState and we'll create this piece of state that starts at 0. I'm going to get rid of this awful H1. You know, this is what it's showing up as at the moment, so not really the greatest. And we'll make it a button element, and we're going to use Bootstrap to style it maybe a little more nicely. And if we wanted to update our state, I might create like a handler function for this. Pretty overkill for increasing a count, but you know, why not? So I'll have a function called increment, and set count will take our previous state and we'll return the previous state plus 1. You could also just invoke set count and do count plus 1. We're not mutating state directly either way. And we really should only have one component ever running this incrementer at a time, so there's not really a need for me to use the dispatcher callback syntax, but I'm going to use that anyway. And we'll have the button text say current counts and then just display the counts, and our onClick function is going to use the increment function handler. So we'll do that. I'm not rendering this button inside of a form. You know, I just kind of have the typical React div soup here. So I don't have to capture the event to run event prevent default. A lot of people will do that unnecessarily. There's no like default behavior of a button inside of a div. It's not going to execute a form submission or attempt to do that. So there's no real need for me to like capture it. If I were using TypeScript, I probably would type it out as like a mouse event. But I mean, there's not really anything I do need to do with the event anyway. So that's why I'm not receiving any function arguments there. But I do have the ability to just adjust some local state upon clicking. Now, like I want to get to, I want to have the app component itself be able to reference a state. So as it stands, I can't really do that because this is a lower level component. If we look at my app, we have some state internal to this component, but nothing here. So my app can't use anything. So what you need to do is establish that state at the closest ancestor, which app ancestor might not be the greatest term, but it's kind of like the greatest common denominator or least common multiple. I get those math terms mixed up. If you know which one I mean by that, please let me know, because otherwise, 4th grade math was pretty rough. So please forgive me. But app has scope of app, and then button panel will also have scope of app's state as well, because we can pass that down as a prop. So all I need to do is move our state up to app, and I'm going to cut the function as well, just because I like having that function named increment. So I want to show the current count here in app. So I'll do what I did previously, which was just have it display in this h1. So we have the state showing inside of our app component. How does that help us with the button? Well, the button panel can receive a prop of a function. You don't have to send just primitive data as props. You can send functions, you can send whatever as props. So I can send either the setCount dispatcher function or the increment function as a prop to my button panel. And I think we can kind of maybe see where this goes. If I can receive one of these two functions as a prop, that means I can invoke that function inside of that child component. And if I invoke that function that gets passed down, it's going to execute whatever code it needs to, which will update this state at the app level. And that gets us where we need to go. So with us having moved our state up to the app component, app has scope of it, and in order for button panel to update, I'll pass down a prop called increment. That's going to be the increment function, just because I like that term since we're dealing with a counter. Otherwise, if you want full access to the data, you can utilize the dispatcher, the setter function, and pass that down. So that way you can do whatever you need to with it. But in this instance, I'm just doing a quick little increment. So and if I wanted to actually reference the count, I could pass that down in as a second prop, but I'm not gonna. So I'll just import, I'll just pass down the increment prop. So in lieu of referencing props.increment, I kind of hate referencing props. Whatever over and over and over in my return. It just feels so and I just kind of hate it. So I always like to destructure my incoming props. And so instead of referencing props.increment, if I destructure the incoming prop, I can just reference increment. This makes my returns look a lot nicer when I'm dealing with really large components that will receive a lot of props. So Now, button panel receives this function. What happens when I click on that button? It invokes that function. What does this function do? It increases the app count state by 1. And what will that do for us? Well, when I click on the button, it's going to now update apps display. So let's go see this actually in action. And there we go. So we have this button lifting state up to its parent component. Now, another kind of more practical example that I talked about is that we might have sibling elements. So I might not be displaying it directly in a parent, but what if I had a count panel? I'll name this a JSX instead of .js, just so I get some good IntelliSense. If I, call it a JSX file, I will get the ES7 React Redux, React Native Snippets extension help, which, yet again, this is a great extension. I type in RAFCE for React Arrow Functional Component with the default export. RAFCE. I think I hit up all of the letters in that acronym. And it's also going to derive the function name from the name of your file itself. So it's pretty handy. Because we're software developers, we're lazy. We want to use as many shortcuts as we can, right? So I love that extension. So I want to be able to display the count here in count panel. Let's see. I'll make it look a little nicer. H1, we're going to use the display one, get some fancy looking text in here, and center align the text within the H1 itself. And so we'll have it say the current count is, and we'll have something rendered here. What is that something? Well, I don't want to have state in here, but I can pass down the prop from my parent. So if I want to have everything just work between sibling elements, let me nuke that H1. VS Code being clutch with the auto import there. I imported count panel, and I'm going to pass in the count prop to it. So I said it was receiving a prop named count, and lo and behold, that happens to be my piece of state name here. So just nice and consistent. Count equals count, increment is equal to increment. Just reads out pretty nicely. And so now, count panel and button panel neither hold their own internal state. Rather, they both hold props that, are semi-independent, but they are props derived from some parent state, and therefore they are associated with the same piece of state, and therefore we can have, let me reload, everything working seamlessly. So this is our app component, everything together. This is our output panel as a sibling element to our button panel, but they are still able to work seamlessly together. So that's all I have for lifting state up. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe just so you get notifications when we have more videos like this. If you have any ideas for some additional interview questions that you'd like to see get tackled and analyzed, please let us know in the comments, and I would love to make a video on that. Otherwise, we'll catch you later and see you in the next one.